Hi everyone, it's Daphne and I'm back to continue working on the 8.5 by 8.5 Kaleidoscope mini album. And it is, like I said, featuring the Kaleidoscope collection from Graphic 45. So in my last video, I did all the interactive pieces for the 8.5 by 8.5, and now I'm getting ready to lay in all the designer papers. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so here are the pieces I selected for the inside, front, and back cover, and they're both going to match. So I'm going to set the back side, the back one aside for a second, and go ahead and I'm double checking my fit. Looks like I need to trim the back one down a little bit, but I'll go ahead and put this one in because it fits. So I'm adhering the top piece first, and if you recall, we put in a pocket, and so I'm gonna put glue on the back, but it's gonna need to slide inside the pocket just ever so slightly, and then I'll come back and glue these little bit of tabs down. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and sit down because I just verified that I'm in frame, and get started. As I mentioned in the last video, this is kind of a departure for Graphic 45. I really like it. And I see some of their common patterns, like they almost always do a word page, but the colors are so vibrant and is quite a bit different for Graphic 45. So it's been a lot of fun working with it. It's almost like working with a different paper company. It's so different. All right. Scoot that over, making sure I'm staying out of the spine area, and that I've got a nice square border. Looks good. Just gonna burnish that into place. Looks good. Okay, and now this is the piece that's gonna go over the pocket, and I cut it and I kind of went back and forth over what I like better. And I think I'm gonna do this because I've got lots of pieces of ephemera and chipboard and stickers that I can embellish this bottom with. So I'm going to keep it very simple. Just a little bit of excess glue there. Perfect. Okay, and in the last part of my videos, I'll come back and add, once all my pages are, the base pages are in, I'll add the embellishments, and I'll also be adding, I guess I got too much glue there, ephemera pieces, paperback or cardstock back ephemera pieces that will slip into these pockets that we're installing right now. Okay, so now we're on to page 1, and hang on, my stack is upside down. Page 1. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do is, although I've trimmed out the paper for the insert, I'm only going to cover the flap right now, and I'll come back and do the insert later. I want to get all my papers laid down sooner rather than later because I don't like shuffling them around. Okay, so here's, and that's the other reason I turned it over, I think, is because I remembered this. So this is the mat that's going to go here. So let's go ahead and get that in, and I'm going to use my contrast sheet so I can see around it. And because it does have words, just need to be mindful of the orientation. Okay, So in addition to that, I'm going to go ahead and add this piece of cardstock back to ephemera. And then one of the things I do, this is just a tip, I don't use foam dots anymore. I take my chipboard, pop out my chipboard pieces, and then I cut up the outline of the chipboard, and I actually use that to pop things. And I like it for a couple of reasons. I think it's pretty much the perfect height, but it's very rigid. So it doesn't smush down or, you know, pop up and down. And I like that better. So it's really a preference, but it is a tip that I wanted to give you. That's how I use the my excess chipboard from the collection. And I'm pretty happy with that. And that is a tip from my sister scrapper, Ginger Rop. She told me that at a retreat. That's how she pops most of her elements as well. So I learned that from a fellow scrapper. And I'm just centering this. And the chipboard does take a few minutes to glue down. It actually gives you a little bit more time to slide things around, but you do have to hold it in place for a few more minutes, more than just a piece of cardstock. All right, so that's how that's starting to shape up. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get the main body in, which is this piece I've selected, and I'm dry fitting it before I get some glue on it. And it fits and it's nice and tight. So I'm operating with very small margins, a 1/16 of an inch, and actually I'm double checking because I'm having a hard time seeing. Get my contrast paper in here, 1/16 of an inch. Okay, that's good. Let's get this in. If you're new to mini album making, I use a lot of glue, and one of the reasons is it holds up really well, but it's also very economical compared to score tape. And there's pluses and minuses. The pluses, it's economical. The minus is you cannot make a mistake. Once the glue dries, there's no undoing. So when I was new to scrapbooking, I used mostly score tape because you can always undo score tape. So if you are new, you might want to consider that. There is no undoing glue. As I've gotten more and more proficient, I've gained some confidence, and so most of the time I'm willing to use glue. There are some exceptions to that, and that is on anything that's interactive. As you can see, this is flat. It's not going to move, but some of these pages are interactive. Anything that's interactive, especially the spine and the cover, I only use tape because glue will dry, and it's not quite as flexible as tape. The tape will remain flexible. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and cover both sides of this flap and then this side. So let's see, what do I want to do? I think I'm gonna have it match the front. I'm gonna dry fit first. Perfect. Okay, I did a good job dry fitting. I did most of this last night, and I checked and rechecked, check, so that I wouldn't have to trim for you guys. Hopefully that holds up over the next couple of pages. I chose black as my base. That's pretty, I consistently choose black for my base. I like it. It's very uniform. But it really, really makes the colors of this collection pop. So I would recommend making your base album out of black. I think it just makes the edge of that just really jump out at you, which I like. Okay, so that is the front flap, and that's ready. And if I had it to do again, I would have lined this first, because when I put this on here, it added some height and it feels a little bumpy. So I'm not sure I'm getting it a good burnish. Just something to think about. Okay, so this is in, and now I've got these two pieces, and I've got a decision to make about how it coordinates. So I have that, that's one of my choices, and this is my other choice. And I like both. But I think I'm leaning toward this pattern. Yeah, okay. So that's gonna go on the outside. Dry fit before I take my tape off. Looks good. And of course I could have done solid, but I think I like the pattern better. Okay, I'm going to turn it around so I can see these three edges. And I'm holding it at an angle to keep it off this tape until I'm ready to commit. Okay. There we go. I'm liking that. I'm liking it. Okay, one more piece and we are done. And you know what, for this, I'm gonna go ahead and take my insert out and apply this. Now, if you do take your insert out and apply your patterned paper, make sure your orientation is correct. So remember which way the insert's gonna go and whether or not you've got your sheet in the right orientation. In this case, it doesn't have a direction, but sometimes your patterns will, like on the reverse page where I have the words. So just keep that in mind if you're not building this album exactly as I'm doing it. Okay. And as I had mentioned, I have papers cut for these inserts, but I am gonna come back and do all the inserts at one time. So for now, I'm just gonna focus on getting the exposed pieces covered. And that, my friends, is the end of page 1. Okay, page 2. Okay, page 2, we have 2 flaps, an upper and a lower. And then we have this piece for the base. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the base in first. And I'm double checking it before I apply glue to make sure it fits, and it does. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn it sideways. Get some glue on it and get it down. Throughout the album, I'm using both 12 by 12 and 8 by 8 designer papers, as well as the patterns and solids that come in the collection. If you buy the bundle with us, you will get all the elements that you need to make this album. I'm going to turn it right side up again. And then I'm going to go ahead and get, this is going to be the featured piece that's going to go on the top flap. And I really like this. This is basically the cover of the collection. And this is the 8 by 8 that I'm using inside the album. And I will be using the same page on the cover, but I'll be using the 12 by 12 version of it. The scale is a little larger, and I think it'll work a little bit better. So the elephants will be quite a bit bigger. And I will feature them, in fact, I've already fussy cut them out. I'll feature them in a multi-layer cover. which I'm still working on, but I've got most of the elements selected. Okay, very good. So there's the feature. So when you come to the page, that's going to be the first thing you see. The background for that is going to be this blue, I guess it's zebra. Take that, oh, you know what, I should dry fit it first, make sure. Yeah, looks beautiful. The other advantage of using glue is you do get a little bit of time to wiggle your paper into the right space. You don't get that with tape. So those are really the two reasons why I like to use tape. Glue. One, you can move it around a little bit, and two, it's less expensive than the tape. So for putting, and you know, people ask me this and I forget to write it down, but to put a mini album together like this, and this is a pretty simple one, usually my other ones are a little bit more complex. It takes about a roll of 3/8 inch double-sided score tape to make the cover, spine, the pocket pages, and all the interactive pieces in the album. So it takes about a roll of 3/8 inch to make an album. And of course, a little less if you're using different varied sizes. So sometimes for the spine, I'll switch to a wider tape. But if you're only using that side, it's going to take about a roll. And that's before you get to any of the designer paper. That's just making the black album. So just so you know, I always try to make sure I start with that in mind so that I don't run out of tape before I can finish the book. Okay, I'm going to turn it over so I can see these 3 edges. And I'm also making sure the orientation is right. I know this is the upside, so the words need to be going this direction. So that is all correct. There's not a lot of content out on this collection so far, although I have to say that the samples that they had at Creativation this year were really pretty, and I was having a hard time imagining how to make something with this paper because it is so different from what I'm used to, but their inspiration was really good. It's out on the Graphic 45 page, and you can also find it on Pinterest if you just search for Graphic 45 Kaleidoscope, and it is done by one of my favorite designers, Ginger Ropp, and she did some really beautiful cards and inspiration pieces using this collection. And I actually went back and looked at some of the work she had done to get me kick-started on this album. So I would encourage you to do that. She's a great designer, great person, and I'm sure if you take the time to go take a look, you'll be happy with what you see. I mentioned this when I was building the album. I forgot to leave a little bit up so that I could tuck my designer paper. So this is tape. So the good news about tape is you can pull it out. If it was glue, I wouldn't be able to work with it. So I'm just using a metal tool to lift this slightly because actually I need to trim this down. I take that back. But this is going to actually slip inside the pocket, and I had not trimmed it down. So I'm going to set that aside for the moment and go ahead and cover the pocket. So this is going to go over the pocket like so. And this is somewhat directional because, you know, the feather of a peacock does go up in a certain direction. So I'm just double checking as I'm laying it down. Okay, and then I'm gonna take off that excess glue. Pull this up a little tiny bit, and then I'm going to trim this down real quick. And I think I need to trim it to about here. Okay. Okay, let's see. Does that work? It does. Can I get it all the way in? I need to trim it down a little bit. Let's see if that works. I'm going to lift this a little more. And I'm going to turn it over so I can see all the sides. And try not to do what I did. Try to leave some tape on the back end of that so you don't have to go through that process. I turned it over because one of the sides is not inked because I just trimmed it. So I just want to make sure that is the side that is inside the pocket and not exposed, since I didn't bring my ink pad in here with me. Okay, that is in. All right, now I've kind of futzed around with this and my tape's not as strong as it was. So I'm going to go ahead and add a dot of glue. And remember, this has flanges, so I'm not interfering with the width of the pocket at all. I'm just putting it on a dot on the end where the flange is to hold it in place. And that's only because I forgot something in the first place. All right, so that's in place. Okay, and I have one more design feature that I'm going to go ahead and lay down here. This is part of the cut aparts, or am I? Maybe I'll wait. I think I will wait. And here's why. I'm going to add some chipboard to the back of that. So I've got a little more dimension here. Dimension. Sorry, wrong word. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and slip this in here so it doesn't get misplaced. And I dropped something, so let me get that together. Okay, so that is 2 and 3. Now we're on to page 4. Here we go, page 4. Okay, page 4 is same function as page 1. So we've got this left-right flap here. And then on the right side, we've got a flap. And it'll also feature this nice piece of ephemera that's going to layer on just like so. These peacocks will go on the back side. And then here is my base page. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out the papers. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to see what my flip side is going to look like. I picked 2 papers and I just want to make sure I'm laying them down the way I planned. So I think I'm going to do that. And this. Yeah, okay. And then this is the inside. Okay, so here's the decision I need to make right now. This is going to look like this pretty much. What am I going to do for these 2 flaps? And I think I had planned this. So I'm going to lay it out, make sure I still like it. And so that's one option. This would be the other option. or even just doing one of those. I'm going back and forth. I'm not sure, so I'm going to go ahead and lay down the ones I am sure about. So I'm going to lay down these blue ones real quick. Double checking fit. It's all good. All right, that's in. So now I'm going to do the other one real quick. Double check. This is your last chance to trim if you need to. Turn that right side up again. And so these two pieces are going to go here, and I'm going to go ahead and lay them down too. Or am I? No, because these need to be popped as well. These need chipboard on them. So I will add the insides. Funny because you design it and then you take a break and you're like, what was I putting where? This is what I'm doing. I try to make an effort, even though I don't fall in love with every single pattern in the collection. Usually by the end I love everything, but in the beginning I'm like, not my favorite. But I do try to make an effort to show every single pattern in my albums. Okay, making sure that's upright because that's the top. That's the head of the peacock. Okay, that's done. Now I'm going to do the flip side. There we go. Double check and make sure it's trimmed right. Looks really good. Get that little bit of tape off. Funny, some days this goes right in and other days I feel like I'm fighting every single step of the way. Today is a good day and you guys are getting the benefit of that because I'm not stalling. Okay, so those are in. Now the next thing I'm going to do, because I know this is definitely what I want, so now I'm just going to decide which orientation I want this paper in. And I kind of like the rainbow and imagination. But you can turn it lots of ways. As you can see, there are words going in many different directions. But this is what I think I like. I'm going to get some glue and get this down. And I'm coming across to make sure I'm staying out of the hinge area, and that looks good. Did I do, you know, I spoke too soon. I told you I was doing so great, and now I gotta take it back. It was up a little too high. Much better. Okay. Okay, there we go. I'm going to get this piece in. And then we have a lot less papers floating around, which is helpful. The other thing I noticed when we were at the conference this year is that these bright colors, these sort of neon colors, were everywhere. They were in the ribbon, they were in the paper. So clearly a trend. I haven't seen it in a while. Everything comes around, right? But it seems like these really vibrant colors are back in our space. I saw it in yarn as well, so lots of different textiles. Okay. Looking up and down, side to side. There we go. So there are the basics for page 4 and 5. And so the next thing is I need to make a decision about what is going to go on these panels on the inside versus the outside. And originally I had designed it with both sides having this pattern, and I'm rethinking that now because the blue pattern is the same. So I think what I'm going to do is, well, what am I going to do? This pattern and this pattern, and then I'll reserve these two for the insides of those flaps. Okay. And the dry fit. Lovely. Okay, and then since I have it this orientation, I'm going to go ahead and slide this out a little bit and add the inside. And it fits. Just making sure I'm out of the hinge, the score line. That's in. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on this side. Dry fit, looks good. So, if you're watching, I'm curious if you're a subscriber or just happen to find us. And if you're not yet a subscriber, please do hit the subscribe button. We do have quite a few things for you to take a look at. If you're a subscriber, you can go look at our playlist, and we organize our videos by collection. So if you look at, for example, Kaleidoscope, all the Kaleidoscope related videos will be in one location for you. So each one of the tutorials will be all co-located in one place, making it kind of easy for you guys to find. We have lots of tutorials. We do our best to provide a tutorial for every walkthrough that you see. So please like, share, and subscribe. And consider us when you're buying paper for your mini albums. We are at Scrap and Create, www.scrapandcreate.com. And we always carry all of Graphic 45 collections. We do have some Prima and 49 and Market, as well as Stamperia, which we really like too. So we have a really good selection of Stamperia. And we also try to keep in stock you know, the staples that you'll need to put your album together. Okay, so that is page 4 and 5. And these will be applied, but I'm going to actually put some chipboard behind them. So I'm not going to glue them down just yet, but I'm going to use my paper clips to hold them in place so I do not mislay them. All right, that's done. Okay, so the next page, very simple pocket. Page 6 has a simple pocket. And on this page, I did remember to leave a gap so that I could slide the designer paper down, but I did not remember to trim the paper down. So I need to trim about 3 inches off, and I'll do that really quick. I make myself nervous when I don't put a tick mark. Move that L. Let's do that. Okay, let's see if this fits. Perfect. Okay, so now we're ready. I'll go ahead and get some glue on this and put it down. Got a little heavy there, so I'm gonna wipe that off. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over so I can see these 2 outside edges and slip it in. Shoot. Perfect, it's in. So much easier when I remember to leave the tabs covered with tape. So now I'm going to go in and take off that little bit of tape and press my corner down. Okay, that's done. Turn it right side up. This is the piece that I selected for here. Yeah. Get some glue and get it down. We're getting close. Woo! There we go. And then I am going to place this here, and this is another example of where I want to add my chipboard. So I'm just going to clip it to here so I do not mislay it, and when it's time to add the chipboard I can get to it really quickly. And when I come back and start doing the embellishments and all that other stuff, I'll add these. Okay, we are on to page 7. 7 is a mirror image of page 2. I'm going to start by laying down the base, which is this beautiful orange. And I'm looking, but I think I might need to... No, I don't. I thought I might need to trim it, but it looks like it fits. Okay. contrast here so you can see my edges clearly. All right. Okay. So now we have 4 of these panels, and I get to choose how I want them to lay out. And I think I want most of my color on the outside, so I'm going to put my elephants here. And I'm just checking to dry fit, yes. And then underneath my elephants, I think I want this nice, beautiful blue. Yes. So I love the contrast with the orange. And then these 2 orange pieces will be on the inside. Okay, slide this towards me. And I'm going to use my contrast. I love this paper. This is probably one of my favorites in the collection. That and the cover sheet. I really like the cover sheet with the elephants on it. So, as usual, if you buy the collection from us, you will get the bundle, which is the 12 by 12 Patterns and Solids 12 by 12 collection, the 8 by 8 collection, tags, pockets, stickers, chipboard, and ephemera. And then for buying from us, we throw in some extras. We throw in 4 yards of coordinating ribbon and filigree, corner filigree, and charms that coordinate with the collection. So we hope that's enough to get you to come on over and buy your bundles from us. And I try to use the charms and ribbon in my collection, so what you see is a pretty good representation of what would come with a bundle. Sometimes we run out of things and have to substitute, but it's a pretty good representation. And the ribbon for this collection is really pretty, so I look forward to using some of that, and I may use some ribbon to hold the book closed. I haven't really decided yet. That comes as part of the embellishment phase, so when I get to that, I will be adding some of my ribbons and definitely the charms and filigree. We have these really cute elephant charms that I'm looking forward to using. Okay, so that is in. So that is what the finished, actually that needs to slide over. It's not dry yet, so I can. It's getting close though. Oh, it wasn't dry. It was sticking to the tape. There we go. That was not quite square, so I'm going to add some more glue to this. So I think it's too dry now. I am pretty... It's really important to me to get my borders even. So not everybody wants to put that much effort into it, but it matters to me a lot. So you might see me lift things and reposition them like so. So this one is not fitting as exactly the way I want it to, but if I'm going to have an error, I want it to be on the inside and not on the outside. So, and that's just because I don't know why, but sometimes my trimmer just won't cut square, and that's really frustrating, but it's a fact. Okay, so now I've got these inside pieces that I need to cover, and I'm going to cover them with these 2 orange pieces, I think. Although that seems like an awful lot of orange, doesn't it? Maybe I need to rethink that. I do like this. Maybe I'm gonna, yeah. I know I used it on the outside, but I really like it, so I'm gonna use it on the inside also. Because I think that was too much orange otherwise. that looks good. I need one more piece. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and trim down this piece. Even though I had selected this originally, I'm not happy with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim this down really quick. Take a quick measurement, but if I recall correctly, this is 5.5 by 7. And that's right, 5.5 by 7. So I'm trimming that down to 5 3/8 by 6 7/8. So I just take 1/8 of an inch off the overall flap size to come up with what I need. Yeah, I'm liking that a lot better. Okay, but I need to ink it, so hold tight. Okay, and I'm going to ink this real quick, and this is why, because you can see that white edge, and against the black, it just doesn't look very good. So I'm gonna knock that white off real quick, and then we can get that in, and then, gosh, we're very close to finishing. Which for me, I think is a record. I don't think I've been able to put an album together this quickly before. And part of that's because I don't have very complicated flaps. But as you can see from the pattern, it's really hard to do too much layering because the patterns themselves are so strong. Okay. I'm just turning it over so I can see these edges. And I'm remembering to reorient my paper. So when I open my flap, this isn't upside down. Okay, it's in. All right, I love it. Okay, and then I'll probably put something else here, but this is pretty much the basics for these 2 pages. And then the last page is a mirror of page 1. Start by laying down the base mat and making sure my orientation is correct, and the feathers do need to go this way. I'm going to dry fit it. It looks good. One of the nice things about an 8 by 8 or 8.5 by 8.5 mini album is the cover is a 1/2 inch bigger, so it's 8.5 by 8.5, but the inside pages, the pocket pages, are 8 by 8. So that makes using your 8 by 8 pad very simple. I wind up trimming off 1/8 of an inch just to get my border, but it's really nice. I originally had made when I first started, before I was using graphic so much, I made my albums a little bit bigger, but then I found I was always having to add a strip to my 8 by 8 pieces of pattern paper. But I was used to only using 12 by 12. So that's one of the reasons why I came to this album size, and why I use it so often, is because it really takes advantage of the 8 by 8 pads that come with the collection. I think this goes like this. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in. And that's also why when you do a larger album like 8.5 by 10, or at least when I do, you'll see me doing a lot more piecing, and that's because you know, it takes a lot of paper to do an 8 by 10. I mean, essentially you need a 12-inch sheet for every page you have. So you'll see me doing a lot of piecing if I'm using the 8 by 8 and the 12 by 12. Okay, so that's in. And then remember, I add this, but what I learned from the other one is I really want to put the back on here first because this is kind of bumpy. So I'll get the back end first and burnish it on, and then add that piece of ephemera. And we should dry fit it. I think it looks really good. But I'll show you guys. So there it is. Looks nice and tight. Get my tape off. So this is the second video. The first video focuses on getting the interactive pieces in place. Video 2 is adding all the designer mats. And then video 3 is going to be me coming back and doing the embellishments and getting all of the ephemera ready for inserting into the pockets. I'll also cover the back, the front, back, and spine in the next video. All right, much easier to burnish this in place when there isn't a bunch of bumps on the other side. So I really recommend that. All right, that's done. You go ahead and get this in. And I always feel good about getting my mats in because it's hard with all that paper floating around to think about embellishments. So I know some people like to start a page and completely finish it. I've tried to design that way and it just doesn't work for me. I need to get these papers nailed down before I can start thinking about anything else. All right. And as I mentioned before, if you are using the chipboard on the back, it does take a little bit longer for it to grab. So be patient before you flip the page. Make sure it's really in place and down. You'll notice it kind of slides around a little bit. Okay, so we're almost finished with this page. We need to add 2 pieces to complete it, and so now I just need to make a decision about whether it's this piece, and I really like that look, but it's the same pattern as that, so I think I'm gonna go with this. Yeah, and I like that too. I like both. So I'll get this in and then flip it and get the inside done. Felt like I had it. Turn it outside. I'm going to slightly pull this out so I can get this piece in. All right, I'm dry feeding it, and it's perfect. So, I'd love to hear from you guys when you're following along and building your own albums. It's great to get feedback from you, especially if you find something particularly useful, or the flip side of that, if you think I'm not being clear about something, let me know, and I can take those comments, and I read all my comments and I try to reply to everyone, and I will incorporate those into my next production when it makes sense. And if it doesn't appeal to everybody, then I'll just reply to you directly and let you know what my thoughts are. But I'm happy to chat with you about any challenges you're having on your album, or if you need any advice. So drop me a line. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so now we're on to the back cover. So here's the piece that I've trimmed out for the back cover. And fortunately, I remembered not to glue these tabs down, so that'll make that go in nice and easy. I'll turn it over, get some glue on it, and put it down. So we love having our subscribers. And we really appreciate it if you click on our site and take a look at what we have in our shop. Making purchases from our shop goes a long way to helping us fund this channel. So we really appreciate that. And we try to be competitively priced, so please keep us in mind when you're looking for paper for your projects. All right, so that is in. Okay. And I'm going to have this match the other side, so it's going to have this as the line there. And it's very simple, but I plan to put some embellishments on the bottom pocket. I don't know what they are yet, but there will be something to make this a little more interesting. When it's finished. I got so much glue on my hands, it's going everywhere. Okay, now as you recall, I left these two sides up, and this one is done with glue. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue there, and I did this one with glue because I wanted these pockets to be snug. And because it's a 1/2 inch wider, because it's the cover and the back, it's a 1/2 inch wider than the pocket pages. So I'm not really worried about using up any of the space inside the pocket with the glue. If I was, I would have flanges. Okay, so in the end, that'll be a nice pocket for us. That concludes the 8.5 by 8.5 internal designer pages for this mini album. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. And when I come back with the next video, which should be the last video, I'll be adding the embellishments. And one of the things I'll be going over is all of these flaps, getting them covered. So as part of the embellishment phase, I'll be covering the inside flaps. So, and then I'll also cover the back spine and front for you. So that's the end of the Graphic 45 Kaleidoscope 8.5 by 8.5 mini album. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to leave comments if you like it. Click like. Click the more button if you want the cut list and the materials list. And then please consider us when purchasing paper to make your mini albums. Thank you.